Awakening to Love, a 5-MeO DMT trip report posted to the Actualize.org forums by Kingston, March 25th, 2023. Yesterday, I finally had the courage to try 5-MeO at 40 milligrams. Since 30 milligrams only produces a moderate trip for me, my intuition told me I needed to go higher. So after plugging at around 7:50 PM, I calmly sat on my bed and waited for the effects to kick in. After 7 or 8 minutes, the effects had finally kicked in, and I started having an uneasy feeling of nausea. I wanted to vomit, but as my consciousness arose in the speed of light, I became too conscious to even care to move and vomit. I just lay down on my bed from seating position and closed my eyes. As soon as I closed my eyes, time stopped. I suddenly became conscious that time does not exist. Time is just imagination in this present moment, and this moment is all there is. This moment itself lasted eternity. Time is just one of the many elements that make up our human life. There is never time. There is just now. However, this was just the beginning. As I watched my consciousness significantly increase, I became conscious that all of my sensory fields are literally made of consciousness itself. I don't know how to put it into words. I just felt like all my sensory fields started to collapse. They merged into each other in this spiral sort of fashion. And this was a non-stop force that I, as ego, could not control, which was what finally started to make me afraid and worried. Combining this with the uneasy, nauseous sensations, for the first time during a trip, I begged it to stop. It just became unpleasant, but it was weirdly amazing at the same time. I wondered how this could all be possible, and I was surprised that I never had experienced anything like this during an LSD trip. The fear came. I wondered where all of this would be leading me. This is too much. Then, I realised that the only thing I can do here is to surrender completely. So what actually is the act of surrendering? Well, the act of surrendering is to just face the fear. Face equals give attention to, equals aware of, equals conscious of. So that's what I did. I simply became conscious of my fear, the sensation of fear itself. Then I became conscious that fear itself is also part of consciousness. It's just one little facet of infinite consciousness. Everything is consciousness. The only reason I was afraid was I didn't understand who I really am. I'm not this human self. I am consciousness. Fear is there as a necessity for the existence of this ego to fool myself into thinking I am an ego, and fool me into thinking that there really is something to be afraid of, all in order to stay alive. If everything is consciousness, including fear, my sensations, my current room, my breath, my hands, my thoughts, trees, animals, peoples, drugs, psychedelics, etc., then who am I really? I started to wonder. As I had this realization, my conscious and sensory fields were merging into each other more and more. It was like a never-ending spiral. It was quite amazing to watch all of this happening, and it felt like it would last for an eternity. Finally, the spiral of consciousness consumes every part of me, including the image of myself, as well as my memories, my body, and lastly, my fear. I gave up. I totally gave up. This is the most amazing and yet the most terrifying thing. I died. I literally died. I am gone, but consciousness remains. then I realised what all of this collapsing of my ego, the dying process, is all about. This is the process of love. Now, what is love? Love means I'm willing to fully experience suffering, experience fears, because these are a part of my consciousness. The only thing that prevents me from realising love is my fear and my escape and avoidance from it. Love must be total. Love must be a totality. If you don't accept all the things in this world that you hate, you cannot love. What every human being is most afraid of is suffering, fear, torture, and ultimately death. If you cannot accept or love these things, you cannot really love. By loving suffering, fear, and death, it literally means living through these moments, fully experiencing them until the point you realise that you are them because you love them. Love is just the total embrace of everything that is in consciousness, whatever that is good or bad to your human senses. And finally, this spirally emerging process completes. Everything has finally emerged into each other, and all that remains is oneness. What remains is just this conscious field. I'm one. If me equals one, then who am I? Oh my God. As I scream these words out loud, I am God. I'm God. I'm God. I cannot believe it. I just can't believe it. I screamed my lungs out in pure joy and happiness, and while I was realising that I am God, my consciousness started to spirally emerge again. However, this time, my consciousness field is an imagined orgasm, and the sensation of orgasm told me that it loves me. Then, my whole consciousness field is suddenly filled with an orgasm and starts to merge into itself. It is literally like this picture. Imagine each little black circle in this picture, and that it represents your most amazing orgasm you ever had during sex. And during this moment, there are literally infinite numbers of orgasms merging spirally into one. It never stops. This is literally the best possible pleasure you would ever encounter. Infinite high, infinite orgasm, infinite love. Oh my God. This is infinite love. I am infinite love. I screamed once again. And this is my peak of realization, my peak of the trip, my peak of pleasure. And it lasts for an eternity. I became love. I am love. Love is an infinite orgasm. While it literally felt like eternity, and it is, as my trip began to end, my consciousness started to go back to my baseline. I fell back into my ego self. Everything slowly returns to normal. However, it left me completely speechless. I'm happy like a child. I cried. I was lying on my comfy bed for quite some time and just stared at my ceiling thinking, I am God. I am love. This is the surest thing I know. Not only do I understand that I am God, I became it. I am it. And God itself is love.